Satnam. Hi, my name is Sangeeta Ferri and welcome to my channel. I'm going to move right into the documentary The Keepers. I've been doing many videos, and don't worry if you haven't watched it yet. I'm only taking little bits and pieces of it and reflecting on it from my private practice as an intuitive energy healer, as a Kundalini yoga practitioner, and a spiritual counselor. So we're going to go right into it. Jane Doe is very impressive throughout this whole documentary. The bravery and the courage that it takes to stand up on a legal platform and face the church system and file charges of rape and abuse from the priest is something that, let's face it, thousands of people are not doing. As we watch her throughout this documentary, her body language, her voice, her crying, her privacy, because she isolates herself throughout this whole documentary until the very end, she has a way of going about finding her truth, finding and retrieving these memories and healing that I respect and I can relate to from my own healing process of being severely abused as a child by my mother. I don't think any human being would go through the humiliation that came along with her journey. She is truly an example of strength and a warrior that I will remember for the rest of my life. In episode 5-6, she talks more about her husband. We see him throughout the documentary. He is a protector. He stands by her. He's a rock. And he believes in her. I have to admit, I was a little bit jealous. Because within like a 5-year period where I was coming out with my views to my family, I didn't have anybody there for me. And the men that I thought would stand beside me really didn't. And so it left me shattered. I had a lot of healing to do with my heart. And it's scary to face your darkest demons alone. But I am also a testimony to sit in front of you today and say that it can be done, and I did it. And what I accomplished from it was self-love. If someone cannot respect my voice and my truth, that's their issues. So I really admired the relationship that we got to see throughout the documentary of Jane Doe and her husband. He did end up with esophagus cancer, which, you know, he had to swallow so much of his emotions, especially in the courtroom when he sat behind Jane Doe, his wife, and he wasn't able to get that anger, and basically that's the connection between the digestive system and then the throat being stuck. And this is a lot of times when I work with clients who are victims, how to release those emotions. Anger stores in your liver. How are you digesting your feelings, your information? And we do this with a lot of different yogic as well as spiritual techniques. She wrote a poem about real love, and that meant a lot to me. I actually cried during that. Having worked with a lot of couples in my private practice, you really see where are these two people coming from in this relationship. I do believe with the divorce rate increasing, there is going to be a paradigm shift that actually is going to be positive. I believe that as we raise consciousness, we're not going to marry just to marry. We're not going to marry to be codependent or to fill somebody else's needs. I believe we're going to start to develop ourselves to be whole beings and then attract another whole being, and so then we're a whole couple. Yeah, that's exciting. That's what I believe. There's this quote from somebody in the documentary: child's memory in an old man's mind Dark secrets live on. And what he was saying was he was a little boy watching his uncle and friends basically take Sister Kathy's body in a rug out into the forest while he was exposed and they were trying to distract him. And it's kind of like, what are you thinking? What do you think this boy's not going to process what's going on? Children, more than anything, read body language and energy. Words only are like 7% of form of communication. Most people use words to lie. I find it fascinating as well when I work with family systems and the parents are fighting. They have no idea how much that's affecting their children. One, it could be blocking their inner ear and now they're losing their ability to really listen. Two, the vibration of the screaming, if it's constant, then becomes a trigger. That vibration could be in certain music, whether it's healing or whether it's whatever, rock and roll, pop. And that's where I feel like, and this paradigm shift, whole people will start to attract a whole relationship and will start to break these generational parenting patterns that are bringing in so much victim abuse. So using your voice is a big theme. Truth heals, it takes away shame, and fear haunts us. I remember in my mind, in my conditioning, I felt if I voiced my truth about my mother, she will hate me. I feared that. She will just hate me. And then I received a book from a psychologist who was actually studying off of me at the time. And I recommend it if you have trauma from childhood, The Betrayal Bond. Amazing book. This is the real deal. I wanted to read a couple things that stood out. Page 9. For example, women who were sexually abused as children are 8 times more likely to have cancer than women who were not abused. I believe that. I see it in my practice every day. And then page 15 talks about the splitting, disassociation, talks about amnesia. What I love about this book is there's a lot of questions that you check off because there is a lot of categories of characteristics: trauma reactions, trauma repetition, trauma bond, trauma shame, trauma pleasure, trauma blocking, trauma splitting, and the list goes on. Trauma is complicated. It's not black and white. And depending on the psychology of your abuser, this was a game changer for me because I started to honor my feelings. And a lot of times, if we're really chronically abused as a child by a parent, we end up giving them so much of our identity and our love, or we define it as love, that we don't know how to identify ourselves or love ourselves, and we think that that's a bad thing. So I went through this whole guilt process of parting my ways with my mother and providing for myself. And let's face it, even in my adulthood, I was being mentally abused. If patterns were switching, then I would have amended and tried to rebuild a relationship. But unfortunately, I was not seeing or hearing the results or even feeling the results because I'm so in tune with my feelings that my abuser was ready to really deal with the truth and the reality of her sins. Okay, so then we go into a section that I found fascinating where they are interviewing this one man who they believe may be a part of this murder of Sister Kathy. He may be a part of the driving, he may be a part of the whole scene, and they're showing him pictures. And when they come to showing him Sister Kathy, you can see it all over his aura and his facial expressions that he is involved in some way or another. And I immediately thought about when I came out with my abuse to my immediate family, one of the things I did was I sent a picture. I thought for sure if you look at this picture, you can see it. but no results. And so I want to show you these 3 pictures right now. First, you're going to see a picture of me and my authentic soul as a child. See the open expression in my jaw, the joy, the facial expressions, my eyes. Now you're going to see a second picture of the abuse process when I was being abused. Now, I've shown this picture to psychologists and friends, and their mouth drops. I look like somebody, like a deer facing a headlight, which is what trauma is. The eyes are so scared and fixated, and trauma is stored behind the eyes. So as I'm releasing trauma through a lot of my healing crises, my left eye in particular would shake and get all these sensations, and then memories would pull out. The third picture, which scares me the most, is pretty much at the end of my abuse. I look so sick. I look like I had a stroke. And the irony is, I don't have a medical degree, but I have worked with a lot of massive stroke clients and reprogrammed their brains. Well, guess how I know how to do that? It pretty much looks like in this picture I have a massive stroke on this side of my face. The left side of my whole body is where all the reprogramming had to happen. My eyes are not right, especially on the left side. And I looked at this in my healing crisis and was shocked at it. A picture says 1,000 words. And a lot of times with my clients, if I feel like they need to, I'll say, get a photo album out. Let's start looking at you and your journey. And sometimes we have to take certain pictures and we've got to burn them. We've got to release them. We've got to surrender that materialism, that identity of what that was, to free up the spirit and the soul to move on, to fly. So I'm going to finish with you today with Sat Nam. That's my channel. Sat is your truth and Nam is your identity. We're going to chant Sat Nam going up what we would call the chakras. Now, if you don't know anything about chakras or yoga, it's not a big deal. You don't have to. You could close your eyes and just sort of feel the vibrations, or you can try it. There's no right or wrong. Sat Nam. Nam is your aura. Sat Nam. Now, I'm not going to get technical today of the chakras, but just think of it going up to the crown and then Nam. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Wonderful. You can continue that. If you haven't subscribed yet, please below. If you have any comments or questions, I would love to hear about them. I wish you a blessed day. Sat Nam.